We've got this initial view. We can look at it in 3D. We can look at it in first floor. I'm going to use the first floor as an example. And if you guys remember these little boxes that were out in space, I told you guys not to mess with them. These, I can actually highlight it and I can figure out what it is. And if I look at it over here, it's really just a building elevation. So what this is going to be is this is going to be your view. So if you think about that, I kind of moved it to kind of move it, but you can see up here it's movable. And I don't know what else to call it, but this ends up being which view do you want to see, right? So we click it here, that's going to give us east. If we click it here, it's going to give us the south view or the north view or the south view, whatever view we're clicking on. So these are your elevation markers. We'll talk a little bit more about these later, but these basically are connected to these. So as you delete these views over here will disappear. Hence why I said don't delete them, because you do need them as you're starting to develop this. You can change these later on, but for starting out, we want to keep these. So the next thing I want to do is I want to start looking at cross sections. And so again, repeating myself over and over, these are just views of the 3D model, right? So a floor plan is nothing more than a visual cut. And if we move something here, it's going to move on every other plan. Well, when we start thinking about cross sections and I look at a cross section, essentially nothing's different, right? This is just going to be a view. So I can literally cut across here. And once I click in a spot, it's got some information here, right? It's going to tell me which way I want the view to go. So I want it to go to the inside. And this is called back clipping. So it's only going to show as far as that back. Excuse me, I'm trying to pull this down just a little bit. Trying to get it go through the steps, but miss the closet here, right? This is back clipping, and I'm going to explain what this is here in a second. So what I've basically done at this point is I've created a cross section. And if you look here, you'll see we have a new one here called cross section, section 1. And if I double click this, there is a cross section. That's literally doing what I've asked you guys to do by hand in the past. It's taking this particular view and it's clipping. And if you look here, if I highlight this again in some way, you'll see that this little line here is only through the door. And if I look back at that cross section, you'll see here, I really can't see too much beyond. Additionally, the roof is cut off. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come back into this first floor and I'm going to change this back clipping. And I want it to go through the entire building. So if I come back to this cross section, you'll see now it actually includes the entire roof height, the roof height. It's also showing me where the ceiling would be if it were a cathedral ceiling. Additionally, it's going back and it's showing me the entry door and the 2 windows. And if you look at where those are located, they're located way over here. And I have this window here. I have this window here. And this is a pretty valuable cross section. It starts to give me a lot of information. Again, just like anything else in SketchUp, you can take these things and I could simply flip it. I want that cross section to view the other way. If that were the case, I wouldn't need this thing to go out quite so far. And if I come back into the cross section, you'll see now it's cutting through the staircase and it's looking towards the back wall where we have one window here. This is that closet. This is that back window. And again, you know, I can come in here and I can put in a door. And so if I come back into my first floor plan, you'll see here I just added that door right there. So just remember that everything's always connected. You can virtually work in any view that you're in. Sometimes it'll put stuff where you're not expecting it. So if I clicked here, it would actually put it on the second floor and it would be exiting out through the side of the wall. Obviously not desired. But it only works on the items that are nearest to you. So like this here I knew was a closet wall, so I could pop that door in on the closet wall. And you'll see that, again, that was the desired result. I got it where I wanted it to be. Maybe not exact location, but maybe I wanted it here and shrink this thing down. It doesn't really make that big of a difference, but you guys are getting the idea that everything's all parametric and connected. So we've got cross sections. We've also got a bunch of other cool stuff. So some of the other things that we can look at here is I can simply say I want to do a call out. And a call out is going to be, I want you guys to think of this as a detail. So let's just pretend that this was a bathroom, and I planned on printing this floor plan out at a fairly small scale, but I wanted to do a blow up of this particular area. So I can do what we call a call out, and I can highlight this area, and you'll see now I've actually generated a bigger view. I know it doesn't make sense yet, but we'll get to this in just a little bit when we start to put these onto a sheet of plan or onto a sheet of paper. But if you look over here, you'll see here I have first floor call out. So if I double click on that, it's kind of this cropped view. And what's neat is that if you look down here, I'm able to change my scale. So it's actually 1 inch equals a foot, which is a fairly large scale. And if I come back into my floor plan was a 1/2 inch equals a foot, or a 1/4 inch equals a foot, right? So I go back into my call out. You'll see here, this is still 1 inch equals a foot. And what's kind of neat about this is that I can actually start to annotate this with text. So I could come in here and start putting in so-and-so text, and it really doesn't matter. I want it to say that. Boo. Can I not copy paste? I guess not. Control C. Ah, cool. It does work. Okay. So I was able to put in some text, and you have like all of your text tools here. Not a huge deal. But what I wanted to show you with this is, even though I have this text and it's in the middle of the floor plan, when I go back to my normal floor plan, you're not going to see it. And so this is allowing me to get a much more detailed drawing of this bedroom. It's a much larger scale. This is 1 inch equals a foot. Again, this one over here is a 1/4 inch equals a foot. So this view is going to be 4 times as big as, this view is going to be 4 times as big as just a normal floor plan. And so these things become increasingly important. A bigger building, we were talking about like checking out sections of a building and things like that. These things are going to start to play an important role as you start to get more into detailed drawings. As you guys can see up here, there's a whole lot of stuff in the Annotate tab. You've got dimensioning tools. You've got detailed lines. This is going to be something that you guys will use. This is all mostly noting is what we're looking at right now. I'm gonna kind of peek through some of these other ones. So if I go back to view, we have some 3D views. And so now I'm actually going to take this and I'm going to say I want a camera. And I'm going to grab a camera from here to here. Okay? And so now I've got this actual 3D view. And I'm going to change this a little bit, stretch this out, get a little more field of depth on this.
Wait, Mr. Walker, can you do that one more time?
Yeah, the camera view?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Let me see if I can delete that one that I just made. Okay, so in this one, I'm going to just go under the 3D view button. I'm going to hit the camera button, and I'm going to pick a to and from. So there's my camera location, and I'm kind of clicking and dragging, I just click, drag, and then click again, and then that's going to give me my view. And guys, just like everything else, you have a bunch of options over here, right? Like eye elevation, right? So again, we can change this, and we could say that we want this taken from a very, very low shot. So let's say 2 feet off the ground, and we want it to be aiming at like 9 foot off the ground, and I could say apply. And basically what I've done is I just tilted the camera in 3D, and I can still grab these lines and drag these bounding boxes out a little bit and get me a little more view, right? And this isn't the best view, but you guys get the idea. I'm just trying to show a little bit more of the rendering. And right now, there's not much to this. It's a very kind of whatever view. I'm going to actually right click on this and I'm going to hit rename and I'm going to say lobby to rail, just so I can kind of start to have like an organized list of all my camera shots. Additionally, I can change the style. So I could come in here and say shaded. Kind of nice, right? Yeah, real nice. We didn't really set any interior colors. We haven't painted anything or done any of that. But we can go to realistic, and realistic is actually going to use a little bit of rendering power. And this takes a second. I might have just crashed my computer, but we'll see. There we go. So we've got a little more realistic rendering. It's still not great, but just know that like if we had materials applied and colors and paints and things like that, this would look a heck of a lot better. And so now we have a view. I'm going to change this back to shaded just because it's less memory. And again, you can change this different detail and things like that. Medium, fine for this sort of thing. Medium is probably okay for this. Actually, coarse probably wouldn't change anything anyways. I'll just keep it on medium. So what we've done now is we started to create more views, right? So we've got first floor plan call out 1. It's a terrible name, so we're going to actually come into this and we're going to rename this, and I'm going to call this like bedroom. Actually, let's go with office detail. And that, again, that's going to help us start to remember what this thing is called. We could start getting into some more. I'm going to talk about this here in a minute. This starts to autofill as we get a little bit further down the line. Let's see here. What else do I want to say? We got elevation. We did elevations. Elevations were the predetermined, right? So plan views. This is essentially what came built in. We had these plan views, so you can create them by doing new datums. There's a million different ways to do this, but right now we're just going to kind of leave it at that, I think. Actually, before we do that, let me do one more thing. I'm going to go back to my lobby to rail detail, and there's a little button up here that says render. And so without getting into too much detail, and I haven't changed anything, I can say that this is an interior, and I could just say sun in artificial. I'm not going to play with any of the settings. I'm literally just going to do this on a medium instead of low, and I'm just going to hit render real quick. And it's going to look terrible, but it'll give you guys an idea. Shoot. There we go. So if you look there in the background, it starts to apply sun settings. It starts to apply interior lights. If the material was set here, this would actually not look too terrible. But you guys can see that that's fairly quick and easy, right? To get a rendering. If you have a really, really huge model that's going to take, and to be honest with you guys, I've had renderings that are going to take hours and hours to render. So there's this really cool button that says like rendering cloud. And what this rendering cloud button does is it'll actually pack up your rendering, send it to hang on a second. It'll actually pack up your rendering, send it to Autodesk on their servers. And so what I could do is, this is a very lame one, but it asks me what view. It'll ask me what I want. Do I want a still image? And you know what? I don't want a still image. I actually want a panoramic. And then rendering quality standard, that's fine. I'm going to leave the rest of it there. And I'm going to go ahead and hit render. And so what this is actually doing is it's taking my whole drawing file, it's sending it out to Autodesk's website, and it's rendering it using their computers. So I'm like cloud computing while I'm cloud computing, as weird as that sounds. Um, but what's really cool about this is that their servers are much more powerful than ours, and their computers are much more powerful than ours. So they can render much larger projects than we can do in house. Now, one of the things that I will tell you guys is that um, this actually cost. So if we were in a business setting, um, these would actually we would get charged to do these. And so what's really kind of neat is since we have education licenses, we can actually utilize. You can see I don't do anything personal in here. I use this for all school stuff. I have my own account that I actually pay for credits. Um, we have I think it's unlimited credits, honestly, to do our own renderings online. But what's kind of neat is they actually keep your renderings. So this was a student project from a couple years ago. They did they were doing some sort of community or like youth center, and they were trying to redesign like what to put in the game room. And you can see here it's just panoramic. You can scroll around. um, if you have a Google Cardboard, this directly will go right into your Google Cardboard. So you can just click this little button. Oh, it'll re-render it. I won't do that, but it'll actually go into that and actually create a Google Cardboard, so you can use it sort of like VR. It's not quite as good as VR, but you can get in it and turn your head around and look around. But you'll see here. I mean, the quality looks decent. I mean, the materials aren't really set right, and there's nothing on the walls and things like that. But it still gives you an idea of what you can render through a free rendering program. And again, guys, I'm just kind of covering some of the features that Revit allows you to do. And this thing back here, the negative thing is that they basically queue your jobs, so you just get put in a queue. The nice thing is, well, the negative thing is that it does take some time. So even if this was a big rendering, it would take some time. The nice thing is that it's not running on my local computer, so I can continue to actually work while my rendering is populating in the background on somebody else's diamond server. And you'll see this thing constantly running up here while it's doing that, and then it'll come up and tell you that your rendering's done when it's done. So let me just take a breath right there. So far, feelings. What do we think here? I see somebody says that's so cool. So how are we feeling about Revit so far? Love it, love it. Lit. That's a good word. Okay. All right, guys. So it is cool. There's a lot of neat stuff to it. The one thing that I will tell you guys that I need to kind of make sure that I'm open about this. One thing Revit's not good at, and it never has been, and quite honestly, it never really will be. Or at least in my opinion, maybe they'll get there. But when you really understand construction and how things are built, to see things that come together like aren't this isn't accurate. So one of the things that you have to do in Revit is you kind of got to come back in here and manually modify. And this is the part for me that is unbelievably slow, to be honest with you. So what ends up happening is you have to kind of you have to just come in here and modify this. So you come into this thing and you start to use like line tools. And to be honest with you, like I haven't fooled around with it, because what I typically do is I don't like drawing in here. I think and again, guys, it's also me and my experiences and the way that I work. I find that it takes me a heck of a lot longer to draw with inside of this. If I'm trying to like model, I'm trying to look for certain tools here. I swear it's just model line. current work plane. See, normally you have like little tools right here. All right, I'll play around with it later and find out where those are at. But in any case, you would come in here and you would manually have to draw in the details and make it more accurate. And so for me, that's where the time saving that you get from being able to kind of do the parametric 3D quick stuff, for me ends up getting eaten up when you have to go in and come not into this, but when you come into a cross section view and you have to manually modify like all these little details that aren't drawn properly in Revit. So I end up spending more time modifying this than it would be for me just to go into a different program and draw it all from scratch. So I tend to stay away from Revit for certain things. I think it's great for quick floor plans. I can't do that as quick with a piece of paper, or AutoCAD or anything else. I do it faster here, obviously. So, all right, so right now, up to this point, all we've done is we've generated a model and we've generated views. We generated a first floor. We've generated an office detail. We had a roof, which was a roof plan, essentially. This one I'll talk to you a little bit about later, about how we're going to change this to actually show the roof plan, because right now it doesn't really look good. It's actually cutting the roof off. We got a second floor. We've got a site plan, which is nothing. You can see here it looks like a roof. We've got our 3D lobby view, which obviously we can generate 50 more if we wanted to. And then we have our 4 elevations. Okay? And we're not going to get too much more in depth with this. And then last but not least, we have our cross section, our one cross section. And in fact, you know what? I'm going to create a second one just for fun to kind of go the other direction here. So I go in the view. I go in the cross sections, and I'm going to cut through the door this time. So I'm going to go that way. Click, and I do want it to go all the way through actually, I don't even need it to go all the way through the building because it's only going to see these doors and then stop. So I'm just going to bring it to that point, and you'll see down here I have section number 2, and you'll see here there is my cross section. I can stretch it out a little bit more to make sure I get everything covered. You'll see here that it actually includes my datum marks, my floor heights already, which is nice. And so there's a cross section. All right, so we have generated nothing printable at this point. We've literally just generated plans or views. So we have first floor plan. We have that set at quarter scale. We have an office set at 1 inch, or an office detail. I'm going to go to second floor plan. I'm going to also set this one at quarter scale. And site plan we're not going to worry about. A 3D view we're not going to worry about. Elevations, let's go ahead and set these also to quarter scale. So I'm just manually going to go in here and change these 4 down to 2. Quarter scale, quarter scale, quarter scale. And last but not least, quarter scale, and then I'm going to change my 2 cross sections. You know what? I'm going to leave them at half scale. Okay, now our next beautiful thing is we're actually going to start looking at paper and what this what our output is going to be. So we refer to them as sheets, which is pretty simple, right? So we have to actually come in here and say new sheet. And again, just like everything else, we have templates. So this is an E size sheet, which is 30 by 42. I can hit load, and hopefully they're in here. I don't know if they included them. We have title blocks, and then we have 11 by 17. We don't have any architectural paper here. We have all ANSI paper, but that's okay. So let's use, we're going to use a D size sheet, and I'm going to hit OK. And now you'll see here it added it in here. I'm going to go ahead and add a sheet. And so I have my first title block. You guys should feel like you know what this is, right? This is just a normal title block. We can add in some information here. But more importantly, we have one sheet right now, and it's named unnamed. It's numbered, and all of that stuff is dynamic. We can come in here and we can name this. We can come in here and change all this information and start popping in information. Here is where I say what I love about Revit. This is one thing that I really love. I want this sheet to be elevations. I'm just going to start with elevations. And what's great is I can just start dragging in elevations. And you'll see here, it actually brought in that full elevation. And
Mr. Walker,
yes, ma'am.
sorry, real quick. I was going to ask the same thing Rhea just asked. How do you open the sheet again?
Sure. Let me go back real quick. So down here on the property browser, you have the sheets. And what you do is you hit right click, new sheet. And what that's going to allow you to do is come to your templates essentially. And so the only one that comes preloaded is E1, which is way big. So I went to load, and then I found the folder that says title blocks, which should be one of the last folders. You'll see this big long list of stuff. Scroll to the bottom, title blocks, and then I selected the D size sheet, which is a fairly common piece of paper. And then I highlighted that and hit OK. Did that make sense, guys?
I got it.
All right. Rhea, you good? Okay, perfect. So what I started to do was I started dropping these elevations, but I'm going to do something a little bit different here. You can see here these lines are really exceptionally long, so I'm actually going to shrink these in, and I'm going to pull this in a little bit tighter over on this side. So I got to zoom in a little bit and grab this and drag this in. And this is just part of like I'm just going to call this building or drawing maintenance. I'm going to leave my north one. I'm going to leave this one somewhat long because I want to show you guys what happens. Come on. I'm going to leave the left side long. And I think it's important to see what happens. I'm going to leave the right side. I tightened in the right side, but leaving the left side long. So I'm going to come back into my sheets here. And what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to drag in my east elevation. And you'll see here that this is nice and clean. It kind of used the overall distance of my lines to kind of show my drawing on a piece of paper. I'm going to go ahead and grab the north, and I want you guys to look at what happens here. I've got this really exceptionally long drawing, and the reason why is that the drawings basically force themselves to the to the maximum, and you can see that this isn't a really nice look. So unfortunately, the easiest way to do it is just delete it. Go into your north elevation, come in here and actually modify this here. Stretch this thing, get it nice and close. And then what you can do is come back to your sheet and reattach that elevation. And you'll see this time here it would look a lot better. And there are some neat little tools here. You can line them up and it'll help you line things up. You can see here that this little drawing name thing actually is kicked down a lot lower than this one. And the reason for that is that it tries to avoid other geometry. And like I got this little section marker that's a little bit closer. The nice thing is that you can modify that. So you can simply just move this up and make your drawing look a little bit better. And guys, we're just really learning and practicing with Revit right now. I would not want my drawing to be off the sheet, so I'm actually going to highlight these two together. Oh, I meant to highlight them together, but I'll just move them separate since I didn't want to do it. And you'll see that these are going to line up via the center mark, and those should be nice and lined up. Nudge this around with the arrow keys, and then I could start dropping in my other elevations. Of course, I didn't straighten these up yet. Well, it looks like south is okay. Okay, so those are okay. So it actually followed suit. So I come back into my sheet. I can actually add in this. Sheet's not big enough to handle it, but you guys are getting the idea that we could put more drawings on here. If we decided we couldn't fit all 4, we could just put these 2. Move these down, center these up in the drawing. And then what we could do is quite simply just right click on this and say, we should be able to say copy sheet. All right, right click new sheet. It should give me the same template again, so I'm just going to hit OK. And now I've got a 102. And if you look in here, you can see that it has the elevations that I had on 101. I would come into 102, continue to add my elevations. Okay, I'm going to add a new sheet here. Same template. And then this one here, I'm going to add in just first floor plan. And you see here it's monstrous. Anybody want, before I click on it, anybody want to take a stab at why it's so big? No one? Remember those little elevation markers that were floating out in space? They actually will mess you up when you get to this stage. So there's a couple things that you can do. You can come back in the first floor plan. The easiest thing to do is move these things real close. Okay, and you'll see here now, they're actually getting intelligent now. They didn't have any information here before, if you remember back. They were just dashes, right? So now they know that these things exist on certain pages, and these are actually called elevation markers. And so what ends up happening is when you print out this floor plan, somebody's going to be able to look at this elevation marker and go, oh, it's view number 1 on page A102. So if I go to page A102 and look at view number 1, that's that elevation. And all of these are going to be goofy because I moved the view markers around. So again, the parametric thing is really cool until you make changes that you don't really like. I'm not going to sweat that right now. But again, let me go into 103. Go ahead and pop in the first floor plan. You'll see this one comes in a little bit better. And there we go. It's view number 1 on page number A103. We've got a first floor plan. And guys, this is naming off of whatever your view name is, right? So if I had this, so let me just push this up a little bit. And then you go ahead and pull in that office detail. Oh, and I will show you that. Hold on, that's really cool. So if you guys can see that right now, it has nothing listed on it because we don't have that office detail placed anywhere. So I'm going to move this drawing up and get it out of the way. And I'm just using my arrow keys to kind of nudge it around. And then I'm going to go ahead and drop in this office detail. Again, doesn't fit perfect, but you guys are getting the idea. So I got my office detail, but what's cool is that filled itself in already. So as soon as I added it to this drawing, it said, oh, that's on 2A, or it's on 2103. So this now becomes drawing number 2, again, on page 103. So Revit starts to really kind of show you its strengths when you start getting and assembling these drawings. And then obviously we can continue, right? We keep adding, as we add more views, we could add more sheets. The only last one I'll show you is I'm just going to put on one of my cross sections. Use the same template, grab one of my cross sections, drag it in, and of course, again, my markers and things are blowing me out of proportion. But
Mr. Walker,
yes.
Do we need to have all of the sheets that you're making?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
I was like, you're going so fast.
And yeah, it's so really, guys, I just want you to overview. This is really just an overview of what you can do. And I'm showing you guys like where the strengths are, right? So I just put this drawing in. Of course, all these section markers that we've had. So when we come back to, say, floor plans, you'll see now that this section marker still doesn't have anything because I don't have that on a page yet. But this one over here, whoa, where's my other section marker? All right, made a liar of me. I don't know where my section marker went. I might have turned it off for some reason. So let me drop this one in on. Well, you can see this one here is still blank too. So let me drop this one in on another sheet. Actually, let me just drop it in on this one. It won't fit, but I'll put it here just to show you. So that's now number 2, and it's on sheet 104. And if I look at this marker now, it should say 2104. If I go back to my first floor plan, that should say 2104. I don't know where my section marker went for the other one. I might have hit hide by accident. I was clicking around. Yeah, I don't know where my call out went. But in any case, you guys are getting the point where all these things are starting to generate. As you start to fill in information, so like you could say that this is, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to type in front and side elevation. And so you can see here that this stuff is starting to fill itself in. We could create title blocks. If you had a 3D rendering, you could drag in a 3D rendering if you wanted to show that somewhere. Again, I don't have enough room on the sheet, but you could start to see how this is working as like a page layout program as well. So you can start to actually construct your set of construction documents, right? And it just becomes this really uber strong tool. I don't know how else to say it. And we did the world's ugliest building that makes no sense at all, but showed you guys a bunch of the features. And so that's sort of like your unfortunate, like crazy crash course into Revit. And as you guys can start to look up here, you start to see some pretty cool things that you can start to play around with. When you start getting into the grid systems and storefront, that's when Revit really starts to kind of show you that it's kind of a neat program. I'm going to go to a 3D view real quick and quite simply take this wall, and I'm actually going to change this to a storefront wall. And you can start to see instantly like how strong Revit can actually be. Now you could come in here and actually add like storefront windows and doors and things like that. And it has a lot of those things built into it. Additionally, let me see if I can show you one other thing here real quick. So you guys have heard of a company, I just picked a random company out. You guys have heard of a company called Kohler, which is like toilets and showers and things like that, I hope, and bathtubs. You guys may have heard of Kohler. So I literally just typed in, I mean, you can see what I typed in. I typed in Kohler Revit, and the second thing on the Kohler Revit that popped up is Kohler BIM. And when you click on Kohler BIM, what's kind of neat is you can actually start getting in here and finding whatever you're looking for. So I want that toilet, and I want that toilet as a Revit family. And so I can actually download that toilet as a Revit family. Now, unfortunately, I downloaded this on my personal computer and not my virtual machine, so I really won't be able to access it. But I would be able to kind of go into, in Revit, I would be able to go to components, load family, find that file that I just downloaded, and then I would have that brand specific Kohler toilet. Yeah, we can do that. I see your guys' quote here, or question there. So again, there's virtually everything you can imagine. This is just one brand that, I mean, literally toilet paper holder, right? I could download the toilet paper holder and put that um, into the drawing. There's a toilet handle, literally a flush handle. So you could start to see that there's so many things out there for BIM, and as you go through and as you need something, you can start downloading something. All right. So with all that being said, let me let me tell you what your two projects are, because there's going to be two that I'm going to post up on Canvas. One is this. So the drawing that you see, does it have to be perfect? Absolutely not. Really, what I'd love to see you do is, I want the building similar to the way that I have it. I don't care if you put doors elsewhere. I don't care about the shape of the building, but I want it to be a building with the wall that we generated, which was that, the Walker exterior wall, the Walker interior wall, having windows and doors. Don't care what size, don't care what type of windows and doors. Having the staircase, having the railing, having a second floor, having a roof, and then making the gable ends like we did here, where it's got the gable. I don't know. It's a gable. So having that gable, that's the model portion of it. Additionally, I would like to see you guys create some additional views, and that could be a detail. That could be a 3D view, a camera view. And I would like to see cross section, at least a cross section. And then lastly, at least create one sheet. I don't really care what the sheet is. You could just do one with elevations, but at least make one sheet and drag some views into it that I, number one, know that you know how to create a sheet. Number two, that you know how to drag and add views to a sheet. Any questions on any of that? No questions, no comments, no concerns on that?
Mr. Walker,
Yes, ma'am.
are you gonna post this video?
Yes, I'm actually going to stop recording the video right now. But yes, I will